I'm on this path now, but it's just been like so fucking humbling, like so hard to just realize that I will be corrected if I'm not standing in my boldness. This is Only the Bold, where I have deep, riveting, and fascinating conversations with truly phenomenal humans. I'm your gay, ADHD-having, and compulsively curious host, Gia Goodrich, and among many things, I can't get enough of hearing people's incredible stories and getting inside the way their brains work. Each week, I have conversations where we dig below the surface and really uncover everything it takes to live a truly bold life. Despite the messages we get from media and popular culture, the boldest, truest version of yourself is exactly what the world needs. Hello, hi, hey. I am so glad that we get this chance to talk because we had a little scheduling kerfuffle. It just kind of seemed like a great time for me to do a solisode with you, just like chatting about what's been going on because I have just been feeling like the universe is converging in a marvelous way. And also, it feels like a meat grinder. So I am excited about just talking about what's coming up. You've noticed probably the themes in the episode. There have been these self-love gravitational forces that there's certain themes that keep coming up. And believe you me, I am paying attention. But first, we have to mention the obvious. I am recording this on my back on the couch because I am having a less than optimal back day, which I was so excited because 2 days ago, I talked to my chiropractor and we're like 70% better. And then today, just for whatever reason, it's not feeling so hot. And actually, one of the things that I have been thinking about with a lot of this is the idea of timing, because I've talked about Dr. Nicole Sachs' work, and there have just been so many invitations. And I think in life, we get often these invitations. Somebody says something, and we're just not in the right place to receive it. And so we're just like, okay, moving on, whatever. For me, this has definitely been the case. And I've talked about this before that I am somebody who has just been very reluctant to connect my head to my body, to feel my feelings, to have any sort of understanding of spirituality, because I have just not wanted to be a part of any of it. And yet, the universe has just been like, okay, honey, like you can do you. You can do what you want to do, but you're going to stumble a little bit. So you might want to like open your eyes just slightly. And so a great example of this is that about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, I was working with a functional medicine physician. And at the time, and still, like I had a lot of gut and intestinal issues where I was just feeling like I could not digest food. And one of the things that she recommended was this Gupta program, which is a program that is really designed to rewire your neural connections with your nervous system. And so it's great for people who have fibromyalgia, people who have chronic pain, people who are just dealing with these things where you have good days versus bad days. Now, mind you, I purchased it. It's like a $400 course, and it just has been sitting in my digital notebook for a year and a half. I finally, of course, have been humbled, have been like, the timing is right. It's okay, we're here, we're doing it. And so I just have been opening myself up to being in the same wavelength as information that I previously received that I let just bounce off of me. And so in going through the Gupta program, in going back to Dr. Nicole Sachs's work and doing all of this stuff, I've just really tried to be mindful of this idea of timing, mindful of this trusting factor that when I'm ready for it, it will resonate. If I'm not ready for it, it won't. Like, I don't need to white knuckle this thing. Like, this is a jet engine that is already having a trajectory. All you have to do is just write it. You don't need to try to harness all of the forces at play here. I think I've only been able to arrive at it from this deep, humbling place, like having been physically humbled, like literally being on my back, having been humbled in more ways than one that we'll talk a little bit more about. But it keeps bringing me back to this idea of timing and like really asking myself these questions and trying to allow there to be space for whether or not everything is happening in a way that is for my highest good. Because I am an impatient bitch. I just want, and it's so hard, especially like when you can taste it, when you know what's possible and everything like that, and you're just excited, and then you get frustrated because it's not happening in the now. I just keep asking myself, is this happening in a perfect way? Is there a timing that I can't see? The way that I've been describing this feeling is like, I do have this sort of trust, but it feels like I'm in a bowling alley. I'm just like, all right, like my intention, okay, I'm gonna knock down some pins. It almost feels like the universe has like put those bumper guards on it so that I'm like bouncing, 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 shifting, shifting, shifting my way to my eventual goal to knock those pins down, but in a like really rocky, bumpy sort of way. So I've had these, let's call them these universal corrections where what I set out to do on the face of it failed, and then needing to rebound and move in a different way. One of these things is my back, of course. I had this, I'm going to get filthy AF. I'm going to be fit and healthy and go on this journey and I'm going to go work out. And I went really hard and boom, it was just like, nope. And now you're on your back for, I think it's been like 5 weeks at this point. Then I thought, okay, I'm going to relaunch my course because I finally have had enough time to rebound from, I mean, low key kind of traumatic element that was the first time that I did it. I mean, it was beautiful and amazing, but it was just because of the way that my brain works, I was creating content right before I taught it. I mean, I've had these concepts and everything before, so it's not like I was creating everything from scratch, but I was finalizing it right before I taught it. And that just created this stress component that was just so major, like so unnecessary, and yet also necessary because it's honoring the way that my brain works. So I had this massive recovery period and then thought, okay, I'm going to get back on the horse. I'm going to do it. Instead of making it super complicated, I'm just going to do it exactly like I did before. I go to launch it in the marketing way that you do, where you do a free workshop and all of these things. And it just felt like, now this is like super vulnerable situation. So I love you for being here with this with me because it's maybe the first time I'm expressing it. It just has felt like I was being dragged behind my idea. And there were just all of these little teeny tiny fine tuning things that, because of the way my brain works, because of me not being as prepared as I would have liked to be, they just kept like stumbling and I kept hitting this like it just, it's not like this piece isn't fitting where it goes. And I felt really thwarted. Like I felt really upset and confused because here was this thing that was successful the first time around and then the second time. And then I would keep uncovering like these little mistakes that were happening, right? Like when I set up the webinar, I set it up as a multiple session instead of a single session with multiple options. And so everybody was getting the same email from every session and there was no way to track. It was just somewhat of a nightmare, right? Because of this little decision that I made a mistake on. Same thing with links, same thing. There were just all of these, like so much resistance to the smoothness of the idea. What was interesting is that all of a sudden it hit me in putting together the feedback from the original cohort and everything that it was just like, whoa, you weren't really doing what you said you were going to do. Like after the first cohort, I said, okay, I'm going to really reformat and change it when I do it the next time because I want it to be even better, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't do it. I kind of slipped back into ease, right? In this attempt to ease and just get it done. Done is better than perfect. Reverted back to what I knew was successful instead of really pushing forward into what I knew it could be and what the optimal path would be. And I think because of that, or at least the way I'm interpreting it, is that all these mistakes were like these bumper, like me being the bowling ball, like just bumped on these bumpers to try to make my way where it's supposed to be. I realized I needed to kind of fail and flop a little bit in order to get back on track, which is doing the course in the best way that will deliver the most value, that is not predicated on me teaching live, which means more work up front, but is really more about delivering that in the most succinct, clear, impactful way and just doing it and honoring it and owning it. I'm on this path now, but it's just been like so fucking humbling, like so hard to just realize that I will be corrected if I'm not standing in my boldness. And I think that for so many of us, we have these opportunities to really develop and cultivate self integrity. Now, this is something that Roxanne Safai talked about when she was on the podcast, which is an amazing episode. And then also Beth Handel, who I've been working with as my executive coach. And we're doing that event if you're interested in any of this. But it's this idea of self integrity. And I realized that I am not very good at keeping integrity. I have this kind of thirsty way of, oh, I need to show up this way. Okay, I'm gonna, like I'm gonna promise I want this person to feel good, whatever. And so I overpromise and I underdeliver, and then I end up feeling like shit. One of the big lessons in that, I think, is like, can you stand in your worthiness enough to have clear boundaries, to really honor what your capacity is, to show up in a way that's authentic, so you're not constantly in this overpromising and underdelivering, knowing that you might disappoint people, knowing that not everything is going to be sunshine and rainbows, but at least you're being authentic to yourself. It's been so humbling, especially like working with Beth, my coach, about having this realization like, wow, like even when it comes to my amazing team, we create content together for this podcast and with video. I'm constantly in this kind of, oh, well, I'll do this. I'll do this. And then not doing it. I talked to our incredible podcast producer, Rachel, about it, and I had just said, like, I feel like I'm all show and no go, which to me is very activating because one of the parental figures in my life, that was a big like shadow aspect where it was, I'm going to make all these promises and all of this stuff. And people would rally around these ideas and get really passionate and excited. But then there wasn't really ever any substance to it. And so I have this fear of being a charlatan, being a snake oil salesman, and not even intentionally, because there's no way I would ever do that intentionally. But you can kind of do that out of incompetence, right? Like if you're selling snake oil that you really think is helpful, but it is still snake oil, like you're still a razzle dazzle kind of person. And so I've been really nervous. Well, it's just been interesting that, like, basically, in my feelings of not enoughness, I have been creating the circumstances that make me the most fearful, right? I've been allowing people to perceive me as this all show and no go, as somebody who breaks their promises, because I would rather, in my thirsty energy, overpromise in an attempt, and then it ends up with this vicious cycle. It's been really wonderful in so many senses, really going in and looking at how things are performing and how I'm showing up and what are my patterns and cycles. But it's also been really challenging. So I've been working with Beth on the one hand, and then on the other hand, I've been working with this intuitive coach. We'll call her V because she's very much about privacy and all of these things. So I've been working with her, and she's been helping me understand my energy and helping me be able to cultivate my electromagnetic field and all of this stuff, like just getting more in tune with things. In our last session, I asked her, can you talk to me about my back? Like, what's going on there? She did her thing, saying hello to my back, and said that I had all this rage that was there. And I asked her where it came from because I said, I don't really have, like, the big feelings don't necessarily match with my life. And she shared with me, I don't know how to say this. It could sound like, oh, she told you this thing and now you think it happened, but I can't describe like the way my body reacted. But basically, she helped me unearth repressed memory and a repressed circumstance that is huge and scary and dark and horrible that I'm sure I'll talk about at some point in more depth. But I remember like the feeling of how that resonated in my body. Like I just started bawling and like shaking, and all the pain went away immediately in my body as I started to like talk or just even listen to what she was saying. In reflecting since, it hasn't even been a week, I've been asking myself how I could have had self integrity when I wasn't even allowing myself to fully see myself, which is kind of like this brain bending sort of thing. But my brain was hiding a part of my past from me in order to protect me. And in that way, I had been disowning a part of myself. And this manifested in like physiological things and just generally feeling disconnected from my body in a lot of ways. And it's been this unearthing, this like awakening of trying to really like integrate and own and like really love myself, which is such a funny thing to say, because I never would have said, oh, I don't love myself. I don't think we walk through the world like, oh, I hate myself, whatever. Like, I'm a confident bitch in so many ways. And I really always have been. And also, there's been this aspect to me that has just been hidden so well that I didn't even know it was there. And then I think about the way that this has impacted my relationship to myself and this promising and this need to be all things to all people and show up in this way and really focus on how I'm being perceived and the impact that I'm having. Like it's all of this external orientation. A lot of the people that I talk to, like because my course is about becoming magnetic in video and making content and building your brand and business that way. And a big piece of that is what I call your creator compass. And a part of that is your cultural constellation, like really owning your identity, your experiences, and your values. In the people that I talk to, my students, people that I've helped, it's incredible from a distance to be able to see and honor somebody, right? Like a great example is Tracy, one of our students, was saying that she didn't think she could make videos because she has this accent that is thick because she's from the islands. It's just one of those things where it's like, oh, that's so interesting that story is embedded because that's one of your magnetic qualities that I'm totally drawn to and other people would be totally drawn to. I know that it's so much easier when you have this degree of separation and you can really see somebody else and see their beauty and their fullness and like just really love and honor them. And also, it's not without a degree of irony that like this is literally my job is to see people and to appreciate them and to be curious about them and to love them. I mean, every time I interview somebody, it's an act of love and curiosity and generosity and this beautiful energetic exchange. And anytime I teach, which I love, I feel so excited to teach and share. Like I mean, that's what it is. Like fundamentally, strip everything else away. It's about love. It's about seeing somebody and validating them and loving them, sharing with them. And with all of that, really realizing that I have had such an incredibly difficult time loving myself. And not in the ways that we would like traditionally think. I mean, those two, right? Also, like I've had deep body image issues that I've referenced before and had a lot of eating disorder stuff in my past, but also in like this deeper sense of just not being able to see and validate me, who's there. And I think about the way that this manifests, like when it comes to creating content, because this is like an easy way for me to like think about this because I talk about these things a lot. So many people have a hard time listening to something that they've recorded or seeing a video, watching it back, which you have to do to be able to edit it or post it or anything. The way that I've been able to do that is because I'm so divorced from who I am. Like when I close my eyes, the sense of the person that's walking around doesn't look like me. Like it's so separate from who I am as a being. And no wonder there's all of this like blockage when it comes to that. So I'm just unearthing a lot of this stuff and curious about like how much more magnetic I'll be when I'm aligned and really able to love all the aspects of myself. But I feel like a great barometer is thinking about things like when it comes to the cringe factor. And I don't know with you, like if you do this, but thinking about replaying anything from your life. Like it could be from 5 minutes ago, it could be from a week ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever, 5 years ago. Can you replay those memories without cringing? Can you love that person without rolling your eyes or without judging? Can you really just love that version of yourself? And I have a hard time doing that. I really do. Like, even in simple things, like when it comes to fashion choices or whatever, like I have a really tough time with self compassion. So then you see how all of this ripple effect leaks out. And it just becomes one of these things that once you see it, you can't unsee it. And I think about all of us walking through the world, moving through the world in whatever way we do, and really thinking about our interactions with others and the energies that we emit and how much is going out versus how much is coming in. And so I'll share some of the things I'm personally working on, like some of the modalities to help me. Because I'm like excited and uncovering these and everything. So like one of them that I'm really trying to do as somebody who like sucks at meditating is leveraging the power of bilateral stimulation. So this comes from EMDR, which is a therapeutic technique that's really great for desensitizing trauma, all of these things. Obviously, this is not medical advice, la la la. I'm not an expert. I'm just sharing what I vaguely know, but feel free to research it. That when you are stimulated across different aspects of your body, your brain goes into more of this coherent state because it's not defaulting to whatever is dominant. Like we have dominant eyes, we have dominant hands, we have dominant pathways and ways of thinking. And so this bilateral stimulation shakes you out of that. And so the way in EMDR is like they give you these zappers, and sometimes there are lights. You hold one in one hand and it zaps, and then the other hand zaps, and it's back and forth. Well, I found this playlist of EMDR, basically soundscapes that has that same clicking in one ear than the next, that has been helping me be present in my body. I'm actually really excited because I reached out to, and she hasn't responded yet, but I reached out to the EMDR practitioner therapist that I originally worked with because I really want to do a collaboration and really create, because it's been so transformative for me, some of these soundscapes and things. I think it could really do it well. That has been really helpful. The other thing that I think has been really transformative when it comes to trying to be back in trying to be back in my body is something that my coach Beth recommended, which is doing one thing out of self-love each day. So whether that is taking a bath, whether that is watching a show, whatever that is, but doing something that has no other benefit other than expressing love for myself. And one of the ways that that is manifested for me is when it's come to food, because it hurts standing up sometimes. And like the thought of getting everything together is kind of rough. And, I don't like cooking. I'm not one of those. And like saying, okay, well, I am actually going to put in effort and take some time and like feed myself because that is my act of self love. I mean, it feels like put one foot in front of the other because it's just like kind of plodding along. But I really do feel like on the whole, I'm getting better and I'm excited for that. Okay, so I am wanting to spend more time with you. And also, I feel like my energy is just not in a place where I can keep talking to myself, especially like with the pain that's happening. So I just want to tell you that I fucking love you. And I hope that in me sharing a little bit today, it just gives you that ability to just honor what's coming up for you. Vulnerability can be such a weird thing because it doesn't always feel wonderful to be vulnerable, although I definitely have made a life out of it because I appreciate the catharsis that it can offer. But I think the gift in really being vulnerable and experiencing someone else's vulnerability is the way that we allow it to permeate into our relationship to ourselves. And so I hope that this little meandering, this little windy journey that we just went on, I hope that you're able to just let it soak in whatever way feels good to you. Because we are so good when it comes to being bold and showing up and all of these things. Like, we're so good at cutting ourselves off from the loving energy, the flow. Like, trust me, I'm real good at it. And in just creating that kind of generosity, that space, and that acceptance and being kind to yourself, like, oh, it is going to be like a lifelong journey for me. But I'm excited to be on it. And I'm excited that you're on it with me. So I fucking love you. And I hope that this week is magical and amazing and fabulous and wonderful. And if it is not, I hope that it is loving. And more than anything else, that love is really coming from you in relationship to you. Because I love you and I see you and I feel you. And I know we are all just like on this spinning rock in a vacuous space, trying the best we can. Really, like, we're doing a really good job. Like, we're trying hard, we're showing up, we're getting back in the saddle over and over and over again, and we're achieving things and we're failing at things, and we're just going through these cycles that really are so impressive when you stop to think about it. One of the things I'm really working hard on is not comparing myself to the future version of myself, but comparing myself to the past. Really looking back and thinking about who we were 6 months ago, who we were 10 years ago. Are you kidding me? 10 years ago. I'm sure that your life is fucking dreamy to that version of yourself that was existing 10 years ago. And just allowing that feeling, that energy to exist within you, like that pride. Like, one of the best questions I've ever been asked was by Roxy. And I can't remember if it was when I was on her podcast. I think it was, which is Black Belt Beauty Radio, which you should listen to that episode. We'll link it below. She asked me, what am I the most proud of? And it just got me. I was kind of stunned. I was like, that was not where I thought we were going with things. Okay. And it was just such a beautiful reframe because I really had to think of what I was proud of. So that's my challenge for you this week, to think about the places in your life, the ways that you've shown up that you really are proud of, places that you've really done the work, that you've really lived boldly, that you've really been loving, whatever that is, that you've really bounced back faster than maybe somebody else would. And just honor that, like, hold space for it, love it, own it. I fucking love you. I will see you next week. Bye.